Hello, my name is Vadim Varganov. I'm a threat hunter, SOC analyst, and a red team Shmel member. So we'll talk about detection as code using the Sysmon configuration file as an example. Okay, detection as code. This is an approach which helps analysts and engineers introducing information protection to use DevOps methodology in their activities to exclude false positive, test config files, and automate the rollout of protection and security. I will show you an example of a pipeline of content developed to analysts using Sigma, Suricata, Tata, Yara, and other rules. The idea of the methodology of the detection as code is that our content goes to the pipeline and then it goes to the SOC. Be it the content in the screen or any other screen. We can also use some security deployment if a new version is released. We can also see this pipeline, and so the analyst can describe it in the code, and it can be an IAC or a code for testing the content. When the code is written, then you compile the build, which undergoes tests. When all the tests are successfully done, we minimize the number of false positives. We see that our selection rule works fine. We make a release and we deploy it. So we can deploy it differently, irrespective of the content. Then, when we have deployed the release, we look at it. We see that our tests are good, and we can improve this if we see any issues in the monitoring process. Okay, why is it based on Sysmon? I've also seen this config grows quite extensively, and when you have an incident, you need to fix monitoring, and you make a mistake, and then you destroy this config, and you don't have the monitoring or set of rules. But when we test using Sysmon, then the conclusion is not very good. The attributes of the XML scheme up to your mistake will be shown here. To solve this problem, we have a script, Sysmon validate, and this way you can check the correctness of the name of the filtration function, the match between the config and your scheme. Every Sysmon has its own XML scheme with the selection rules and administrative functions. We can also have the correctness of options, naming, and group of events, and also on match and filtration rules, and event attribution correctness. This is not an extensive list. An exhaustive list. We will proceed with this. Here is my pipeline. The pre-stage, where you build a Docker container for Ansible and Python. The build stage, where you have the merge config. The test schemas stage, where you test whether the configuration file satisfies the Sysmon schemes. In your organization, you can have some legacy systems having the old Sysmon version, then test host. So you test the configuration file, the host, and deploy. At the deploy stage, we deliver the configuration files to the hosts. The pipeline description. It was written for GitLab and its runners. We describe our stages, which can be used for the workflow. So in the workflow attribute, we set the rules when the pipeline will be launched. Okay. Here is the Docker file with Ansible and Python. The job at the pre-stage looks like that. We used the build, Docker and Docker, and we go to Docker repository of GitLab, and we will use it at the next stages. The build stage is skipped here because you can build it differently using Sysmon modular or your own scripts for building config. After build, we have the job test schemas. We test the schemas using the Docker container we previously built, and we use a script which receives a schema with the Sysmon version and your configuration file for this schema. To test at hosts, we can use Ansible. The script is in the repository, and we will share it in the community and GitHub when we have it ready. So here is what it does. It connects to the tested machines, checks whether Sysmon is there. If it's there, it deletes it and rolls out a scheme for the schema, a file for the schema, and then the configuration file is rolled out, and then we check that the config and the schema match each other. So we can check Windows 7, 10, 11, and we will make sure that our config works everywhere. So for different schemas, you will need your own config because not all Sysmon versions support the legacy operating systems. Thank you. That's it. There were some questions from the community, 3 of them. What are we missing in the professional communities? My answer is that we are missing activity and personal meetings for networking and exchanging ideas. Because due to the lack of in-person communication, we are shy and not confident in terms of sharing our ideas with the community. Okay, if the projects you have described, if they hadn't been created, what would happen? Well, I would make this myself or with my team because many people don't know each other in the community. Which open source project you would love to create if you had more time? Well, adversary simulation, focusing on the techniques used against the CS countries, because most of the projects can be applied to our infrastructures. So we want to do it on our own. Also, development of detection as code. I was talking about the methodology and the ways it can be used in the infrastructure. So I'd like to have this methodology well developed so that everybody should know how to use it. And also the assessment of EDR, EPP, and CM, so to evaluate them, so that we don't just buy this and run this useless pilots. I want the community to evaluate this so that they tell us which of these systems work properly in terms of detection and response.
Не мои вопросы. Вот, вы в своем докладе упомянули, что проект у вас в GitLab лежит.
Thank you. You said that your project is in GitLab. We'll have it in GitHub. Yeah, it will be there when we have developed the full methodology. So you're not going to hold it back, are you? No, we are not. Any other questions, please? We have a T-shirt for the best question, by the way. Well, sometimes Sysmon has a huge config, and sometimes it just uncontrollably takes the resources of the machine. Have you fixed it? Our config was 15 to 200 lines, and everything worked well. And what was the version of the Sysmon? I think version 15 was tested. Yeah, a recent one.